The Irish safety net is 4 months old and it's time to taste it. Let's see how we're progressing, shall we? How's it going, Chasers? I hope you're having a kick-ass week. I'm Jesse and this is Still It. Today we are going to be tasting a 4-month-old safety net Irish whiskey. What does all of that mean? Well, it is a whiskey that I created to try and represent or appropriate a lot of the Irish whiskies out there on the market, aiming more at the pot stilled side of things, but the way we created it was to make it with 1/3 all grain mash and 2/3 sugar. Why don't you just make the whole thing with grain? Valid point, and to be honest, if I was just making this to be delicious, I would. But the point in the Safety Net series of videos is to try and entice newer distillers or distillers that just have never tried all grain recipes to try mashing, to give it a go, to realize that it's not that terrifying, and yes, you can do it. The grain provides the flavor, the sugar provides the safety net. If you completely mess up the mash, it doesn't matter because you've still got a bunch of fermentable sugar in there from the table sugar. So this has now got to 4 months old, and the last time I tasted it, it was starting to do what I wanted it to, but it wasn't really getting there. It had a hint of butteriness. It had some nice grain flavor. It was just giving a hint of those two flavors melding together into that sort of shortbready note, but there was none of the brighter, fresher, sort of fruity characteristics that come through in Irish whiskey a lot. So at 4 months old, it's time to give this another test and see what progress it's made. So there's two versions here. One has more wood per whiskey and the other has less. The idea was for this one to age up much quicker and this one to take a little bit longer. It seems like it's decided to buck that trend a little bit. I don't know why. Whiskey sometimes is a fickle thing. Heaps more butter. So much more butter. And the butter and the grain are starting to really come together into something cohesive. It's almost a velvety smell now to try and take a texture, like a feeling, and translate it into an aroma. Weird, I don't know why I would do that, but I don't know how else to describe it, to be perfectly honest with you. It's similar to, it really is similar to freshly made shortbread or even oat cookies. And to be honest, I'm actually getting more of it on this version that's got less oak in it. Now the color on both of them is heading in the direction we want, but it's got a long way to go yet. So it is a light golden color, but the density of color is not that great yet. I know when it sits on the bench in these jars, it might look like it's getting really dark, but remember, you're looking through 4 or 5 times as much whiskey than you would ever really see. You know, even a bottle's half the size of this, and in a glass, it's very, very different. It makes me believe that we are on the right track here. That makes me believe we're on track. That's exactly the color I was after. Interestingly enough, this version has a very slight amount of funk to it. It's somewhere between a grain funk and almost a blue cheese, but not nearly that sweaty, for want of a better word. It's buried way down deep under the grain, under the shortbread, but it is there. And I am not sure if that's just coming from this whiskey. I have a sneaky suspicion, and I need to go check my notes after this, that some of this wood came out of the old Irish peated whiskey I made. Some of that went quite blue cheesy. So it could be some flavors hitchhiking in on the wood. Now both of these have made a little bit of a turn in terms of the brightness that started to creep into them. And I wonder if it is a change in pH. I wonder if it's some of the acids coming out of the wood, because it's brightened, it's lifted, it's starting to head towards fruit. There's a hint of it there on the nose, especially in this one, but it's going to be very interesting to see what that turns into, because it hasn't really defined itself into a specific fruit yet. It's just an overall brightening that's happened over the last few months. And that influence is even more noticeable when I'm drinking it. There's a hint of green apple, there's a hint of rock melon, I would probably call it. A mixed berry, almost sort of flavor humming along in the background. I must admit though, it is still presenting a little bit too harsh for what I want. Keeping in mind that it hasn't had a lot of oak influence and keeping in mind that it's still, I don't know, probably like 57% ABV. I'm not that worried about it. I was hoping that it would mellow out. a little bit quicker, especially in this version. But as you know with whiskey, guys, you can't always make it do what you want. Sometimes you just have to go along for the ride and let it do the talking, let it make the plan, and it's your job to shepherd it along the way rather than, tell it exactly what to do. With that being said, I think it would be smart to give it a little bit of water and see what happens. Interesting. The butteriness and the shortbread died down and the fruit came out more. But that shortbread is still definitely there on the palate. And with a little bit of that alcohol burn rounded out, it's actually showing through even more. Or not more, but it lasts longer. Instead of those interesting flavors that I'm starting to get off this whiskey being kind of stripped away by the alcohol, you get to experience them for a little bit longer. I'm going to say this is on track. Last time I got no green apple or none of that sort of fresh fruit flavor at all. And it is starting to show up. So I'm really going to just commit and hope that it is a time thing and it's going to show up more and more as I let it sit. Over time, I'm hoping that perhaps we start to get a little bit more of that creamy, decadent, deep, dark, orchardy fruits kind of showing up. There's a hint of that. There's a hint of it heading that way with that sort of mixed berry thing. But it's not nearly as sort of deep and intense and decadent and almost desserty as what I hope it will be. And I do think that maybe that's just going to take a good amount of time for the wood to give up the goodness. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But for now, I see no reason whatsoever for me to do anything drastic to these other than give them a little shake. And you know what? Actually, let's... I just don't think it really needs this. And to be honest, right now I'm smoking some brisket offcuts to make chili with, and that seems like it would be quite delicious. So that's where that's going right after this. Anyway, I need to say a huge thank you to the Patreons. Thank you so much, Patreons, for being the people that have my back and support me month in, month out. I thoroughly freaking appreciate it. I really do, guys. So thank you so much. For everyone else out there, if you're enjoying this content, if you like these videos and you want to get involved in any way, shape or form, you can go to chasethecraft.com/support to find out all the ways you can get stuck in. Some of them are totally free. You can do things like pick up the merch. Yes, the merch. Speaking of which, some of the tumbler glasses are on special at the moment. I'm trying to get rid of them because they have a slight blemish and I want to find something different. Anyway, if you liked this video, guys, please give it a thumbs up. That helps me out a whole bunch. It costs you nothing and it's a big upside for me. It's one of those easy, cheap ways that you can support the channel. If you have something to say about these or a prediction to be made on what you think is going to happen, feel free to drop a comment in the comments section down below. That helps me out too. And keep on chasing the craft, guys. I'll see you next time.